بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we continue in class 8 of this tremendous treatise entitled Muqaddimah Ibn Abee Zayd al-Qayrawani rahimahullah, about a great Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abee Zayd, as his kunya was al-Malik al-Saghir, the little Imam Malik. And this tremendous basic book in Aqidah, which is suitable for all levels. And you'll find that the great Imam Ibn Abee Zayd al-Qayrawani, or Muhammad ibn Abee Zayd al-Qayrawani rahimahullah, made this book for the children. This book was actually to teach the children Aqidah, even though it's a book that's suitable for all levels, whether they be children or adults. So that's why this book was selected, in order to enlighten the people of the basic creed and belief of the people of Sunnah, in addition to what Rashid Barbi had also enlightened the people by saying that these were from the books that was brought over from the slavery trade. And you'll find that this book was also amongst them. It was found until the actual old book was in the museum here in the museum within Washington, D.C. To let you know that the slaves, some of them that were brought over were Muslims, and rather a lot of them were Muslims, not all of them. In addition to them being from the people of Sunnah, that they were not just Muslims, that they were people of pure creed and pure what? Orthodox Islam. And that this book that we're studying was from those great books that the people studied in order to keep themselves firm upon the correct belief, so they had died and meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a sound state. So this is to let one know why this book was chosen. It was a book that was for the love of the children, it's for the love of the adults, and it is from those great books of creed in which the people of the past praise, and our modern day scholars, or our scholars of today, has also praised. And from them is the great Imam Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Hafidhullah wa and from them is the great Imam Ahmad Najmi, rahimahullah, and Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, and Sheikh Zayd ibn Hadi al-Madkhali, rahimahullah, and my father, Sheikh Ubayd Ibn Abdullah Ibn Sulaiman al-Jabiri, rahimahullah, rahmatul wasi'ah, also explained this book. So this book has been explained by numerous great scholars of today, some that have passed and some of them are living still. It is a book that they praised, and that is a book that should be studied by the children and by the adults in order to teach them the correct creed, because that is the salvation and the success for everyone. That they study the affairs that's connected with the sound creed and the pure Orthodox Islam is of the utmost importance that one dies upon. No one wants to die in a state that's displeasing to Allah. And the first thing, as we know, that will be investigated within the human being is his creed. As soon as you die, immediately when you are now embarking upon the hereafter, the first thing that will be checked is your belief. The actions will come after the investigation of the belief takes place. If the belief is not sound, then everything else will be what? Corrupt. The deeds will not be intact, especially if a person dies in a state of polytheism, in a state of disbelief, or from the people of bid'ah, even though some of them, like we said, are still in the fold of Islam, even though they have adopted perverted ideologies and creeds. Depending on how bad their belief is, some of them are out the fold of Islam, even though they ascribe to Islam. And some of them are still in the fold of Islam. But the point of the matter is, no one wants to die in a state where their creed has been deviated, or their creed has been tainted, or their creed has been what? Altered. And these books teaches the pure creed. So one can die in that sound state, and they meet their Lord in the best way possible, and in the best condition possible religiously. So this book is from those tremendous works that actualizes that objective, or actualizes that goal, so one can attain it before they die. So, as we continue in this tremendous treatise by the great Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad Abee Zayd al-Qayrawani rahimahullah, who died 383 386, I'm sorry everyone, 386 after the hijrah of Mustafa. The great Imam died, we said, 386 after the hijrah. And don't forget everyone about what I wanted to remind and reiterate as much as I can of sitting in these type of circles, brothers and sisters, have great benefits. If one is sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sitting in these circles of knowledge, he will attain great benefits and attain great merits. From them is the hadith which comes in Tabarani and also in Abu Nu'aym al-Hilya, where the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, "Man ghada ila al-masjid la yuridu illa yata'allama khayran aw yu'allimah kana lahu ka'ajri hajjin tammin hajjatuh." The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, whoever goes to the masjid and they do not want except good or learn good or teach it, he will have the reward similar to hajj. That hajj that is completed. The hajj that is completed. Also, there's another merit, which is that the angels, for one who has these type of sittings, and it's for Allah, that the angels descend. إِلَّا غَشْيَ مَنْ There's not a qawm, مَجْتَمَعَ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بُيُوتِ اللَّهِ فَيَتَدَارَسُهُنَّ الْقُرْآنَ فَيَجْتَمِعُونَ يدارسون القرآن فيما بينهم إلا نزلت عليهم السكينة وغشيت عليهم الرحمة وحفتهم الملائكة وذكرهم الله في من عنده. That narration where the Prophet ﷺ said another merit, which is that the angels would descend upon them. For those who remember Allah or have a gathering remembering Allah, and from the great of sittings to remember Allah is studying knowledge, studying his religion, studying his aqidah. He said that it's not a people that gather in the house of Allah or from the houses of Allah, meaning the masjid, and that they study the Quran or they have that remembrance of Allah, except that the tranquility would descend and the angels will what? Envelop them. And Allah, the third merit is Allah will mention them amongst the angels. Allah will mention them amongst the angels. So many merits that one needs to realize in these type of circles and gatherings, and just to remind ourselves of these type of merits and these rewards that are prepared, and they are not something we have to pay for, something that's free, and one can take advantage of this time in order to attain a reward that's similar to hajj, and that hajj that's completed. Sitting in these gatherings, as long as the person has that sincere intention of learning good or teaching it. He cannot have the intention of showing off. He cannot have the intention of order just to argue or just want to show that I know just as more as you. All these affairs are what? Go against what is the ultimate objective behind this, which is to raise our ignorance of ourselves and draw close to Allah by learning his religion and drawing close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by enlightening ourselves and educating ourselves. So those type of matters, just to remind ourselves, there's another merit or another reward from these gatherings, which we'll talk about later. I'll mention next class, but that is from them. So you have these type of gatherings, as we said, where the Prophet ﷺ said that the person will have a reward similar to hajj. And number two, the angels gather. He said, مَجْتَمَعَ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بُيُوتِ اللَّهِ فيدارسون القرآن فيجتمعون يتدارسون القرآن فيما بينهم إلا نزلت عليهم السكينة وغشيت عليهم الرحمة وحفتهم الملائكة وذكرهم الله في من عنده فمن بطأ به عمله لم يسرع به نصبه. So those are from the narrations that enlighten ourselves, just to remind us of why we gather in these type of gatherings. Because like we said, they're the most greatest of gatherings, in which number one is in the house of Allah. And in addition to one, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which he can attain, like we said, these great rewards, and make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this sitting khalisan li wajhih. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this sitting sincerely for his face. Fine, so let's return to the book, everyone. So the time now, we start at 7:18 p.m. Thursday, August the 3rd. The year now is 2023. what agrees on the Hijri calendar currently is what? The 16th of Muharram, which is Yom al-Khamis, Thursday in the evening. The year 1445 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So, let's continue. If you go back to the book, everyone, where do we stop? It says, you'll find that the great Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abee Zayd al-Qayrawani, rahimahullah, he mentions, he said, وَأَوْلَى مَا عُنِيَ بِهِ النَّاصِحُونَ وَرَاغِبَ فِي أَجْرِهَا الرَّاغِبُونَ إِيصَالُ الْخَيْرِ إِلَى قُلُوبِ أَوْلَادِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. We don't talk about this last class. He said, what's most befitting is that those who are true advisors, that they take or give good care of, and those who have that great desire for the reward of Allah, of conveying that good to the hearts of the children of the believers. The children of the believers. So this book initially was what? Authored for what, everyone? For the children. Even though, like we said, it is suitable for all levels. So then he goes on to say, لِيَرْسَخَ فِيهَا وَتَنْبِيهُهُمْ عَلَى مَعَالِمِ الدِّيَانَةِ وَحُدُودِ الشَّرِيعَةِ لِيُرَاضُوا عَلَيْهَا وَمَا عَلَيْهِمْ أَن تَعْتَقِدَهُ مِنَ الدِّينِ قُلُوبُهُم. He said, in order to let them be aware of the ma'alim al-diyana. He said those signposts, or those great signposts of our religion, and the boundaries of the pure legislation. He says, in order for them to be pleased upon those matters, and what is upon them to firmly believe of their religion, what their hearts is supposed to embrace and firmly believe in. So then he goes on to say, وَتَعْمَلَ بِهِ جَوَارِحُهُمْ فَإِنَّهُ رُوِيَ أن تعليم الصغار لكتاب الله يطفئ غضب الله وأن تعليم الشيء في الصغر كالنقش في الحجر. We already talked about that. وقد مثلت لك من ذلك ما ينتفعون إن شاء الله بحفظه ويشرفون بعلمه ويسعدون باعتقاده والعمل به. He said you'll find that, as he goes on to say, that the children and of course the worshippers are supposed to firmly believe in it without any doubt, without it being reluctant or hesitant as far as its belief. Rather, a person firmly believes in these matters that he's going to speak about. He says that you'll find that the limbs are also supposed to work in accordance with. So the firm belief, its effects will emanate where? In the actions. In your limbs, meaning what you do in actions. And that goes back to the statement of the great Imam Hassan Basri, when he mentioned it, he said, لَيْسَ الْإِيمَانِ بِالتَّحَلِّي وَالتَّمَنِّي وَلَكِنْ مَا وَقَرَ فِي الْقَلْبِ وَصَدَّقَهُ الْأَعْمَى. He said that Iman is not بِالتَّحَلِّي وَالتَّمَنِّي. It's not by just mere tahalli, just by mere opening of what is good, or what is the facade of affairs. I mean, it's just open of what you see and what's presented outwardly. And people hoping one day I'll do it, or one day I'll do it, or one day I'll get myself together. He said, however, Iman is what settles in the heart and the actions confirm it. The Iman is what settles in the heart and the what? The actions confirm it. So the actions is what confirms what is in the heart. And it also confirms the level of Iman within the heart. So the affair of what one wants to utilize as a measuring stick of how they fear Allah, look to your actions. That will give you the reflection of your level of faith and your strength. And every soul will come on the day of resurrection knowing what it's waiting for. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this book. That every soul will come on the day of resurrection know what it deserves. Knowing what it earns and what's waiting for it. Those affairs, like we said in the dunya, reflects in our actions. So then he goes on to say, وَتَعْمَلَ بِهِ جَوَارِحُهُمْ. He said, verily, of course, what has been narrated is that teaching the children the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will extinguish the anger of Allah. We'll talk about that in a minute. He says, and that teaching something while in the state of one's youth, or when they're very young, is like sculpting the rock. We already talked about that. As we know that the memories of children are very strong in that particular stage of their life. Which one needs to capitalize in that particular stage? That children memorize and absorb very fast at that age. So that's what he's saying. So let's keep going. وَقَدْ مَثَّلْتُ لَكْ مِنْ ذَلِكَ مَا يَنْتَفِعُونَ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ بِحِفْظِهِ. And he said, and I gave examples of that, of what they will benefit from. Inshallah, by its memorization. وَيَشْرُفُونَ بِعِلْمِ. And what they will become honorable and noble by its knowledge. And they will be successful by what? By its belief and acting accordingly with it. That they will attain of success by firmly believing in it and what? And according or working in accordance with it or acting upon it. Ahsant. طيب. So, let's keep reading some more. وقد جاء أن يؤمروا بالصلاة ل7 سنين ويضرب عليها ل10 ويفرق بينهم في المضاجع. He said then you'll find he goes on to say, indeed they have been commanded, meaning the children. So ultimately this book is speaking about who? Speaking about the children and their rectification. He said, indeed they have been commanded to pray at the age of 7. And that they are struck upon that and disciplined upon that at the age of what? 10. And that they are separated between themselves in the places of what? In their sleeping rooms or their rooms or where they sleep. So let's keep going. So let's go back a little bit. It says you'll find that the great Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abee Zayd al-Qayrawani, rahimahullah. Notice he's speaking about the affairs of action. So number one, he talked about the importance of belief. As we talked about, the creed is binding upon every Muslim as soon as they enter the fold of Islam to start with these matters. In addition, for the children to also start with these matters. And every adult that embraces Islam immediately and urgently needs to what? Learn these matters. It is of the utmost importance. Why? Due to the fact that there's so many satanic ideologies out there today. There's so many that a person can easily be what? Influenced by it. And the pull towards these calls are very strong. Due to that, one urgently educates themselves. Because ultimately your creed is not only allowing you to attain happiness. And what I mean by that the happiness is achieved by knowing why you were created. And the path and the direction of a human being of what will be a means for success is from the affairs in which the human being what? Needs to know. Why am I here? What am I doing here? What's the purpose of me being here? What in my time frame in this world am I supposed to do? What is my ultimate mission? And those matters is from the greatest of affairs that one attains happiness. Because now you're in a state where you have direction. You're not lost, as they said. You're not lost in the sauce. Rather, you are what? You know your purpose. And when you know your purpose, you're what? You're focused. And when you know your mission, now you know what you have to what? You have to do. For those who don't know their mission, and they're just being blown by the winds of desires, those are the people who are in the state of not only attaining inevitable loss, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book in Surah Al-Asr, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. All of mankind will be in loss. All of them will attain inevitable loss. All of them. With all those fractions, all those beliefs, all those what? Ideologies that are pulling them to for what? For ultimately to be their goal is to be their demise in the end. Meaning for them to what? Plunder in a state where they will be at inevitable loss. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only gave one exception to one people. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. The only people who receive salvation and they excluded from that inevitable loss is from the people who Ibn Abee Zayd just mentioned here. Those who have the proper aqidah, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, iman, proper aqidah, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. And those who work in accordance with it by working what? Righteous actions in accordance with that pure belief. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that one brief ayah said that all of mankind will what? attain inevitable loss, and they will also lead to their great demise, meaning to their ultimate destruction. Every single last one of them. And that Allah only gave the exception to one group of people, and that's it. There is no what? There is no one other than that, except those who believe in the final revelation that He sent of all humanity, sent down to the final prophet and messenger, not following any of those calls, not from Judaism nor from Christianity, because they're abrogated. What's the final message is what's the valid one. Doesn't make any sense that you have a final message and the previous ones are still valid. Doesn't make any sense. The final message is what? The final message. What is the final message that says what comes before is what? It's not valid. It's abrogated. So those matters, as we mentioned and said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that all of those matters, all of those ideologies, all those creeds will lead one down or lead one to their demise and to their inevitable destruction. And that the only people who are excluded from that is who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala excluded. And from those affairs is two matters, which is what? Pure creed, which is iman, and righteous actions, which confirms it. And that's what Ibn Abee Zayd is mentioning here. So he says, the pure creed, and then he says what? Now look back. That pure creed, that once you attain it, what does he say in your book? وَتَعْمَلَ بِهِ جَوَارِحُهُمْ. He says, in which the actions are working in accordance with. I mean, once they educate themselves, this is what we're going to teach. So, notice he was mentioned about the affairs of deeds. First, he mentioned it in a way by saying amal jawarih, the actions of the limbs. And we know that actions is upon what, everyone? It's upon two categories. You have amal qulub min khashyatillah. So, actions is of two categories. Number one is the actions of the heart. The actions of the heart, as we know. And the actions of the heart, such as what, everyone? Worship. From them is khashyatullah. The fear of Allah that's coupled with knowledge. The fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's coupled with knowledge is called khashya. It's a specific type of fear. Khawf is more general. Khawf can be with what? It can be with knowledge and it can be what? Without it. However, khashya is more specific. So khashya is only in regards to what? People who fear Allah upon knowledge. That is the most what? That is the praiseworthy fear of Allah. That one knows their Lord and that they fear Allah based upon insight and pure what? Proofs and evidences and knowledge. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obliged upon us to carry out and execute. Not to worship Him upon ignorance, but to worship Him upon what? Knowledge. And in that, if you do that, you will be resembling who, everyone? You will be resembling who from the people of the book? The Jews or the Christians?
Christians.
The Christians. Why they try to so-called fear Allah based upon ignorance. Ignorant of their religion. Ignorant of affairs. Everything is based upon how they feel. Or how they feel emotionally. Not letting proofs and authentic proofs, if they even have it. And all of it is mixed. But the point of the matter is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in this book that they're called Daleen. That they are Daleen, astray, because they try to draw close to Him and fear Him, so-called, based upon what? Ignorance. In contrast to the Yahud, the Jews were different. They had what? Knowledge. But they didn't work in accordance with it. So let's keep going. The first type of actions, everyone, or the first category is number one, what is what? Amal qulub. The actions of the heart. And from that is the worship. Khashyatullah. And you can mention khawf. You can say khawf also. But khashya is more specific. Also, one desiring our Lord and what He's prepared of great reward. That's also from the actions of the heart, which is called raghba. Raghba, which is desiring our Lord and what He's prepared of great reward for those who actualize this mission or carry out this mission in a complete way. All these are different examples of what? Actions of what, everyone? Of the heart. And love of Allah to the end of what? Those examples. I'm trying to keep it summarized as much as possible. But anyway, we know that the limbs that they follow behind the heart, in which the heart contains of purity, or the heart follows behind the corruption of the heart, which will emanate from it, which is evil actions, and actions that are truly in actuality not beneficial. Because the heart, what will emanate from it is that the actions of the limbs or the faculties of the human being, from his eyes and his ears, will be used or misused, or they will be used in an evil way. So those type of matters, like we said, all of the rectification comes and starts from where? From the heart. Meaning, what it contains of proper belief and proper what? Creed. Is it clear? No. So that's why he's speaking about. But however, we have the affair, number one, of the actions of the heart. We just gave examples of that. And you have the actions with the limbs. And you have such a worship that combines between both. From that is salat. Salat contains both. Actions of the heart and what? Actions of the what? Of the limbs. Ahsant. And similar to that is siyam. And similar to that is hajj. Where it combines between all of those matters. Combined together. So you have the actions of the heart and you have the actions of whatever you want. The limbs. Fine, so let's keep going. So you have ta'lim al-sighar li kitab Allah yudfi'u ghadab Allah. So a person will say, is this hadith authentic? You'll find that the great Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abee Zayd al-Qayrawani, rahimahullah, you'll find that he mentions, it says, it was narrated. It was narrated. So the word ruya, that necessitates that the isnad has somewhat weakness. Because we know, if a hadith is authentic, they would say, rawa, he narrated. Or he narrated. Or they narrated. And then they would bring the name of the narrator. And if it was a sahabi, without a shadow of a doubt, they could drop the sahabi and just mention rawa, rajul. And we'll talk about that. It has a little bit of details in it. But anyway, well, that is called sighat al-jazm. Sighat in the Arabic language is jazm. Sighat al-jazm meaning for sure. The context or the word in the context that necessitates surety, such as he said it, or he narrated, or he informed, or he narrated the hadith. Haddatha, akhbara, qala, rawa. He said, he narrated, he conveyed, he. And then they named the what? The narrator. That in the Arabic language from Mustalah al-Hadith is called Sighat al-Jazm. That's called the wording of for sure that someone narrated the what? Narration. Then you got what they call Sighat al-Tamrid or Sighat al-Tad'if. The wording in which necessitates something is weak or has some weakness in it. Such as what he just said in the book, if you look at it. That's an example if you look in your book. Such as it was narrated. It was said. You get it? No. It was conveyed. So that is called sighat what? Tad'if. It's called a narration which is narrated that it has some what? Weakness. Is it clear? No. There's some weakness. Right, so let's keep going. It was narrated. So what type is that, everyone? Has some weakness in it. Jayyid. تعليم الصغار لكتاب الله يطفئ غضب الله. He said that the teaching of the youth of the book of Allah, that it will extinguish Allah's anger. You'll find that the great A'imma, from them is the great Imam Sheikh Salih Fawzan, he mentioned that the hadith is da'if. However, he said it's weak and it's isnad. However, the meaning is correct. He said, ma'nahu sahih. Ma'nahu sahih. He said the meaning is correct. And the meaning is what? Established. He said, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased that we teach our young youth the Quran and teach them their aqidah, and that we properly cultivate them upon these matters. All of these affairs are pleasing to Allah, and they extinguish His wrath. They extinguish His wrath. It attains, or what? Rather, it contains the affairs which is considered from the great righteous actions, which is to teach the innocent little children what will be a means of their what? Of their success and their salvation and their prominence, and what will preserve their affairs or preserve their belief is from the greatest of affairs that Allah loves. So he says, تتضامن قواعد التربية الصحيحة لا التربية الغربية التي ينادي بها العلمانيون الآن. He said, of course, these type of principles, they contain the proper, authentic cultivation, not the Western cultivation or the Eurocentric Western cultivation in which the secularists call to today and the modern day liberalists who are destroying society, especially here in America. And in the Western civilization, they're being destroyed by these real hardcore neocentric, if you want to say Marxist, liberalists who are pushing all these ideologies that you see today. From the wokeism, the LGBTQ, also from the environmentalists. All of it, the ultimate goal for everyone, all this is, you know what it is? Minimize civilization. All of it. Population control and alleviating the number of people being born. That's the ultimate goal of all of this. Because if a woman hates a man and a man hates a woman, then what's going to come as a result of it? There's not going to be anybody being born. And then for now, all these different waves that you see, all of it is pushing towards minimizing civilization. That's the ultimate goal of all this nonsense. All of it. From LGBTQ, from women hating men, the feminist movement, suppressing, now they're mutilating little children. They can have their genitals cut off and change their gender. What do you think is going to happen? Can anybody be born if you do that? Suppressing men's testosterone or suppressing women's estrogen. These are all hormones that cater towards what? Copulation and reproduction. You understand? Now at the age of 10, they're suppressing chemical type of what? Operations that suppress their hormones. All these matters contribute to what? Lack of reproduction. Minimizing what? Civilization, population control. That's all it is, what it's going to lead to. And all of it, at the end of the day, is Marxism. It's Marxism. If you study it, they just come under different guises. The point of the matter of what will save these children from all these fractions and all these different types of groups is what we are teaching now. That's the only thing that's going to save them. Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, and those who can disseminate the proper knowledge and teach them and cultivate them properly. Other than that, nothing else in this dunya will save them, other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed of revelation. There's nothing else that can save humanity and society, other than Allah. Walillahi alhamd, the Muslims, and even a lot of Muslim countries are not embracing this nonsense. They know purely and outright it is wrong. And they're standing firm in the face of this nonsense. And to the point where we know that these Western civilizations are collapsing due to the fact that they embrace all these affairs that have destroyed everything on every level, economically, socially, and everything. It's destroyed the families, destroyed the societies. Families hate each other. Children hate their fathers. Children hate their mothers. Neighbors don't like each other anymore. All these affairs are what? Cater towards one thing, which is the demise of humanity and society, ultimately. And if you look to some of these people who are pushing these affairs, you'll find that their goals that they have said out of their own mouths, my goal is to bring America to its feet. If you study some of the statements of these people, bring America and the Western civilization down. And people are falling for it every single day. At any rate, so you'll find that what we mentioned said, everyone, the matters that will protect the Muslims, to protect our children, is these type of matters that we're mentioning now. These type of affairs that we're going to teach, inshallah, and from the greatest of matters that will extinguish the wrath of Allah is to teach the children the proper belief and the proper aqidah. Even though the hadith, like we said, is weak, but the meaning is what? The meaning is correct. Ahsan. طيب, and he goes on to say, ويقول لشيخه وقد مثلت لك من ذلك ما ينتفعون إن شاء الله بحفظه ذكرت في هذه الرسالة وفي مقدمتها ما إذا حفظه الطلاب وفهموه فإنهم ينتفعون به. You'll find that the great Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abee Zayd, he said, indeed I've given an example of this, of what will benefit them, inshallah, if they memorize it, meaning these affairs of belief. And what I mentioned in this treatise and in its introduction, of course, that the students memorize it and they understand it, they will attain great benefit. And not only that, they will attain by it the honor of knowledge and the honor of doing noble acts and upright acts and pure acts that will also bring what? Benefit to society as a whole, and allow it to be stabilized and allow it to be harmonized, to be working in harmony and working and flourishing. And that prominence and success will come by the belief firmly of these matters that we're teaching, and that they work in accordance with it. He says, in contrast to those books, and in contrast to those beliefs and ideologies and ways that have opposed it, in which the Salaf fought firmly against and stood firm against, these are the matters that we need to also stand firm against and make sure that we protect our children as much as we're able from them embracing these type of concepts and beliefs. Is it clear, everyone? Right, let's go on to the next page. Let's keep going. وَقَدْ جَاءَ أَن يُؤْمَرُوا بِالصَّلَاةِ لِسَبْعِ سِنِينَ. That's due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, as we know, everyone. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? مُرُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَهُمْ سَبْعُ سِنِينَ وَضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ أَبْنَاءُ الْعَشَرِ. That comes from the authentic hadith that we know. He says that, command your children with the prayer at the age of what? 7. The age of 7. Because we know, in most cases, that children start to recognize and distinguish affairs at that particular age. So not all the time that the matter of salah or certain obligations, they have to be waiting until they reach the stage of puberty, where we think that it's now going to 11, 12. No. Certain children develop very quickly, especially females. And they can recognize and distinguish things very quickly. They can know, oh, I've seen this, and I know I have to what? Pray. That you start to develop them and make them realize its importance at an early age. Not by being harsh or screaming at them or hollering at them until the point where they become very what? Scared. Like we talked about, it's binding upon us not to make the worship of Allah like a matter of discipline. Like you didn't do what I asked you, go pray. You understand? You didn't do what I asked you, go stand in the corner and pray those prayers that I told you to pray. You using the salat as something that's the worship of Allah is something what? Disciplinary. That's not the affair, and that's not to raise them with proper cultivation. Because now when they get older, that will make them prone to what? Rebel. Now I'm old, I don't have to listen to you. Now you want to use this as a disciplinary act or disciplinary measure, I don't have to do it. And then it will make them grow up in order to despise and hate what? The worship of Allah. You didn't tell them, you didn't want to do what I told you to do? Okay, read that Thalathatul Usul book. You're going to raise them to what? Hate. And these affairs are beautiful. You're going to raise them to hate it. And it's the total opposite. Learning that Aqeedah is beautiful. Worship of Allah is beautiful. The worship of Allah is something that will be an aid for them when things get rough in their life. That they will use that as a what? As a recourse and a place to return back to in order to give them what? To get them focused and get them back on track. But you made it and raised them to what? Hate it. Because you use it as a form of what, everyone? As punishment. You didn't pray Isha, go in and pray them prayers. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You didn't do your homework, you didn't clean up, go pray Isha. Wrong. You didn't do what I tell you to do, pray that prayer, read that book. Sit there and read that book until I tell you, hey, what are you doing? What kind of tarbiyah is this? That's something that we adopted from what? From the West, when we were raised. Some of us. That before Islam, this is the way we disciplinary, or this is how we discipline our children, by being very what? Aggressive and stern. And to the point where we utilize things that are beautiful, things that we're supposed to adopt as a way of utilizing it as a way to relieve us of pressures and allow things to be in a manner that it will allow us to attain our focus and get us back on track. You made the children now, and you made it in a way where they despise it now. Now they don't want to do it. Because I remember when I was 6 and I was 8, my mom and my father used to say, if you don't do this, go pray. Is it clear, everyone? So that is in a way that we said is incorrect. That's incorrect cultivation in regards to these matters. However, the Prophet ﷺ at the age of 7 informed that one should start commanding their children to pray at that age. And like we said, to start in a manner that is very gentle, and in a way to teach them, like we said, without being so aggressive, but also starting to now get them acclimated. And telling them to start doing the affairs of worship, and teaching them. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, when they reached the age of 10, to what? To hit them upon it. That type of strike is not a strike of what? Where the bone is broke. These people laughing. A bone is broke. There's blood coming out. His eyes is closed. You understand, everyone?
No.
But a little tap.
Oh, okay. All right.
You understand? Or those type of affairs that does not leave a bruise, it doesn't leave a broken bone, and it doesn't necessitate any bloodshed, of course. Or a scratch, or where these welts on their body. None of those affairs. You understand, everyone?
No.
That is the meaning of starting to what? Strike them upon the prayer. Does not mean to break them bones or scare and make them in a state of fear and being very what? In a state of horror. This does not mean that. So the Prophet ﷺ said, وَضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ أَبْنَاءُ الْعَشْرِ. Meaning, إِذَا تَكَاسَلُوا عَنْهَا وَهُمْ فِي سَنِّ الْعَاشِرَةِ لِأَنَّهُ حِينَئِذٍ إِمَّا مُرَاهِقٌ وَإِمَّا قَدْ بَلَغَ الْحِلْمِ فَيُضْرَبُ عَلَيْهَا أما الطفل الصغير إذا ترك الصلاة فلا يضرب. He said, in most cases, of course, that you'll find at the age of 10, that if they become a little bit lax or lazy, of course, when they reach the age of 10, especially the age now where a lot of them are reaching the stage of adolescence, what they call murahaqa, being an adolescent. And we know, in most cases, a lot of females reach that age very quickly. They reach that age very quickly. He said, وَإِمَّا قَدْ بَلَغَ الْحِلْمِ, that they've now reached that age of adolescence. Of course, then they are struck upon the prayer. We just talked about what strike means here, right, everyone?
No.
But he says, for a little baby, of course, if they abandon the prayer, he's not hit or struck. Little baby, a little 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old, you're not going to strike them. You understand? He said, because, number one, it's not obligatory upon them. However, they are cultivated upon it slowly but surely, as much as one is able. Is it clear?
No.
Right. So then he goes on to say, the great Imam, Abu Abdullah Muhammad Abee Zayd, rahimahullah, وَفَرَّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. He said, separate between them in the places or in their bedrooms, in the places where they sleep, in their bedrooms. Of course, you'll find that al-ilm, and I'm sure that everyone sees the hikmah, why the Messenger of Allah said that. Do not leave them, of course, sleeping with one another once they have attained or reached a certain age. A certain age. Where they're sleeping next to each other. He says, of course, due to the fact of what shaitan might cause a fitna. And what arouse the different desires between them. In which shaitan will come in order to decorate. Male and female. Especially, like we said, with dhukur ma'a dhukur. Whether it be males left along with the males, it doesn't matter. Separate between them. Of course, in the places of sleep. And do not leave them to sleep next to each other or side by side. The same bed or what have you. Don't do that. And in addition to that, don't let your daughter sleep directly next to another daughter. Like we said, the shaitan is very tricky. And he's very what? And that he is very, very slick. Nor in the male or the female with the male. Directly. None of them. Separate between them in the places of sleep. In order to avoid those affairs of fitna. Walillahi alhamd, you see the great completeness of our religion. How we have the protocol that is clear. In order to protect our children and protect our families from the different plots and tricks of the shaitan. Is it clear, everyone?
No.
And we know, like we said, our religion and our way of life is based upon what Allah has legislated. We know, like we said, human beings are not in accordance to what they dictate of what's considered the stage of adolescence. We know that adolescence can start what? Way earlier than what they say. That desires can start aroused within a human being way before what? What they say. But like we said, if one was to follow the sunnah, the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then one will be guided correctly to the point where they'll be able to avoid these different types of pitfalls and these different types of plots of the devil. So he goes on to say that you'll find that these type of matters that are important that the great Imam mentioned is from those affairs of worship in which we've been instructed. And this is what we cultivate our children upon. Number one is teaching them the pure aqidah, and that's what we're going to speak about in the upcoming classes, inshallah. And in affairs of what's pertaining to proper nurturing and rearing in regards to what? How to teach them prayer and how to develop them and raise them upon it in the proper way in which, like we said, is pleasing to Allah. And the Messenger of Allah gave us clear instructions on how to carry out that affair in the most what? Dignified and correct way without harming the children and make them hate or despise the worship of Allah, but rather loving it and utilizing it as a way in order to protect themselves and utilizing it as a way to keep them focused when the times become a little what? Difficult. Because our prayers was utilized and legislated in order to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep and maintain our focus. Because sometimes life becomes difficult from time to time, very difficult. And one needs some type of a place or affair or act of recourse they could take as a place of refuge in order to get him or her back on track. And that's how the matters are supposed to be what? Taught to our children. That these matters, when you're raised upon them, when times get difficult, resort to your prayer. Make dua to your Lord. Cry to your Lord. And Allah will rectify your matter, inshallah. That's what you instill in your children. That's how you teach them. Raise them upon that so they'll love the worship of Allah. And that I know when my life becomes difficult, I can utilize these different types of instructions to have and attain my focus. Right, so let's keep going. So from those matters, as we said, ثلاث مسائل مهمة, from those important matters are three. Number one, what one does in regards to them being or commanding their children with the prayer and different types of worship in order that they become acclimated. In a certain age, they'll be what? Ready for those matters. And in regards to that hadith, when they reach the age of 10, what type of strike, what the Messenger of Allah intended by the word hit. It did not mean what? To break something painful to the point where you break a bone. It's not the meaning of strike here. Nor in regards to what? Causes some type of great harm when you injure them and it necessitates they have to go to the hospital. No. We talked about the meaning of strike. But at a certain age, that one does that is the age of when? 10. Is it clear, everyone? No. It says, وَإِمَّا يَكُونُ قَبْلَ أَنْ عَفْوَانِ وَإِمَّا أَنْ يَكُونُوا قَدْ بَلَغُوا أَوْ يَكُونُوا قَارَبُوا الْبُلُوغِ. We already talked about that, alhamdulillah. وَإِذَا بَلَغُوا الْعَشْرُ أَيْضًا يُخْشَى عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ الشَّهْوَةِ. He says, especially now, of course, at the age of 10, of what is feared from them of desires, that shaitan will come and try to arouse. So the Messenger of Allah gave us instructions of what to do. That once they reach the age of 10, separate between their what? Their places of sleep, or in their rooms. Separate between them. Right, so that's in that matter. So let's keep reading. Let's keep going and we'll stop. فَكَذَلِكَ يَنْبَغِي أَن يُعَلِّمُوا مَا فَرَضَ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْعِبَادِ مِنْ قَوْلٍ وَعَمَلٍ قَبْلَ بُلُوغِهِمْ لِيَأْتِيَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْبُلُوغ وَقَدْ تَمَكَّنَ ذَلِكَ مِنْ قُلُوبِهِمْ وَسَكَنَتْ إِلَيْهِ أَنفُسُهُمْ وَأَنِسَتْ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ بِهِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ جَوَارِحُهُمْ. He said, likewise, it is befitting, right, it's incumbent, to teach them what Allah has made obligatory upon His servants of actions, of statements and actions before adolescence, before they reach adolescence. He says, in order for them to come in a stage, and once adolescence starts, they're already what? Acclimated. They're ready. They're prepared. So that matter, those affairs have become stabilized and settled within their hearts already. So you see the hikmah of why the matters is to get them what? Ready. So once adolescence starts, they're already what? They're ready. So you see why the gradual process of what the Messenger of Allah said of doing affairs gradually gradually, until, like we said, once that stage of their lives starts, they're already what? They're already ready, and they're already acclimated. Walillahi alhamd. So it goes on to say, وَسَكَنَتْ إِلَيْهِ أَنفُسُهُمْ. Now their selves will be what? Find ease and relaxation to that matter, and they'll be tranquil to it. And they'll find comfort of what they're doing of actions by their limbs. And that's basically what he's saying. So now they have been cultivated and they're ready. Let's keep going. وَقَدْ فَرَضَ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْقَلْبِ عَمَلًا مِنَ الْإِعْتِقَادَاتِ. We already just mentioned this. وَعَلى الْجَوَارِحِ الظَّاهِرَةِ عَمَلًا مِنَ الطَّاعَاتِ. Indeed, Allah has made obligatory upon the heart acts. We already talked about that, right? Of beliefs. And upon the limbs, physically, what one does of those righteous actions. Those open actions which are done. And those acts of obedience. Then he goes on to say, وَسَأُفَصِّلُ لَكَ مَا شَرَطْتُ لَكَ ذِكْرَهُ بَابًا بَابًا لِيَقْرُبَ مِنْ فَهْمِ مُتَعَلِّمِيهِ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَإِيَّاهُ نَسْتَخِيرُ وَبِهِ نَسْتَعِينُ وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ الْعَلِيِّ الْعَظِيمِ وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد نبيه وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. He said, now I will give you detail of what I've made a condition for you and what we're going to mention one chapter after another chapter. In order for that affair to be what? Close, in the most closest way for them to understand, or those people who are learning to understand, inshallah. It says, only Allah we make istikhara, seeking that good, and by Him we seek His help. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ الْعَلِيِّ الْعَظِيمِ. They send salutations upon the Prophet ﷺ. So the first chapter of the actual book and creed will start next class, inshallah. Any questions about the lesson, anyone? Tfaddal.
Now, so my oldest son sees himself as a drill sergeant of the house, and he aids his mom and his dad with enjoying the good. The question is, when it comes to the prayer, he's always getting the younger ones involved who haven't reached that age yet, and he does it in a loving manner, but it can sometimes be very stern too. Is it cool to kind of let him rock out with that? He's not abusing them, but he is getting them involved, and it's part of that gradual process.
He's not too overzealous, is he? Not certainly the real to the point where he's good. Does he raise his voice, or is it in a manner that is a little bit irate or a little over the top, as they say?
Well, they listen to him. They kind of fear him, so they kind of listen to him. But he's not being tyrannic though.
Oh, if it's not reached that level, then inshallah it should be good.
MashaAllah.
So if it's a case where it's tyrannical, it's a little bit over the top, he's a little too aggressive, to tell him to calm it down a little bit.
And the other part B of the question was, is with pulling them out of the bed, sometimes when people don't want to wake up and the water's not working, and you rip the sheets off and you pull them out of the bed physically, is that a little overboard?
I would think that's a little bit overboard.
Okay.
Pulling your child out of the bed, putting all those type of matters are a little too aggressive.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
No.
And the Lord knows best. Pulling them out the bed is a little too aggressive. Yeah. Anyway, any questions about the lesson? Anything? Wiz?
When you mentioned crowd control,
population
control, it seems like that would be kind of impossible though, because there's always going to be there's always going to be babies being born, and wouldn't that be
not necessarily? Not necessarily. It's not always babies being born. There's a lot of countries now that are starting. You got to realize now, the economy also plays a role. It's a whole bunch of fractions that's now making people afraid to embark upon relationships. A lot of people are depressed. They don't want to embark upon the challenges of families. They're scared. In addition to how the kuffar now have made and set up things, in order now even the kuffar from amongst the men, they don't want to take a risk on a lot of different things. So it's like, you know what? I won't get married, nor will I have a relationship, nor do I want to have kids, because I don't want to take a risk on. I'll get with a woman. I have to build the children by her, but she takes all my money, or she lies to the kuffar and they take my money. So now a lot of men are skeptical. I don't want to have a family, nor do I want to have kids. If I don't have no kids, I ain't got to worry about nobody taking my money that I have. And you'll find this is why become widespread all in the work around the world. They even said in Japan, they said the amount of reproduction has gone down because of the diets. Now, this is another thing that causes lack of reproduction. The diets, the diabetes, the alcohol, the drugs, the murder, the corruption in society, and constant drinking. People got to realize alcohol destroys your liver. When your liver is damaged, estrogen goes up in men. Estrogen goes up, which is the female hormone. The female hormone, now testosterone is suppressed in a man, can't reproduce. Because what causes reproduction is testosterone in men. That's the dominant gene in men to make them reproduce. If that's suppressed, they can't what? They can't reproduce. They can't. And there's a lot, and that is widespread. It's widespread in our society here in America, especially. Diabetes is widespread. Bad diets is widespread. Affairs of obesity is being praiseworthy now. Yes, it is being praiseworthy to be obese. And when I say that, not saying for those who have the little issues going on. We're talking about they're actually pushing people to do it. Why are you pushing the people to do it? There's an agenda behind it. Because if a man now is in that type of way, he can't what? He can't reproduce. Usually they can't reproduce. Their estrogen is high in a male, which is not supposed to be that way. All this reduces reproduction. Now you're starting to mutilate children where they're confused mentally. And they're even now legalizing where you can take hormones and chemicals to suppress testosterone in men. And they're pushing that on the society. Take these pills to chemically suppress your male dominant hormone, which makes you a man. When you suppress that, now they got estrogen, they can't reproduce. And not only that, they're doing now mutilation where you can get an operation and have it removed surgically. What do you think is going to happen if a person does that? You think that they're mentally sick now. What do you think they're going to do when they wake up out of that delusional behavior 10 years from now? They might grow up and become mature and they realize, you know what? I just cut my whole thing off. What do you think is going to happen? Can't reproduce. Drugs also inhibit reproduction. The weed, the fentanyl, all these things plays a part in damaging the human body physically and mentally. And what will come as a result of it is reduction. Reduction of what? Reproduction. You understand? No. The drugs, the alcohol, the diabetes, all these affairs, the corruption, the affairs of men and these feminine ways that are being pushed upon society, the patriarchy, as they say, all that is making women what? Hate men. I hate you, men. I hate you. I hate you so much. Why? So if a man now sees a woman now, you totally despise me, why would I want to have a relationship with you? For what? And you just ultimately, or you just want to marry me just to what? Destroy me. So now men are becoming what? Defensive. They're like, you know what? I don't want to be in a relationship. I'm good. I'm cool. So not only the women becoming isolated and introverted where they don't want a relationship, now the men are what? They're becoming isolated and introverted. They didn't want a relationship either. So what's going to come is, what's the ultimate goal of all this? No reproduction. No families. No family structure. No reproduction of population. No people working together. Nothing. You understand? That's the ultimate goal of all this. It has become a widespread everywhere. Don't think it's in America, it's in other countries too. So other countries, they said that the population rate is becoming, they don't see it now, but it will be 30 years from now, they will see a major reduction in population growth based upon what's taking place today. Because nobody wants to be a family no more. Yeah. Nobody. Allah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from all these different fractures out here. I mean, how many times have you've heard women after the event, women have saying now that they don't want to have children anymore. I'll have 1, 2, and I'll get my tubes tied, I'm good. Or some of them now saying, I just want 1 kid, 2 kids, I'm good, that's it. Now it's scary. I've heard women say, I don't want to have no kids. I don't want no children. But like I told you, everyone, what's scary is that I've heard sisters, this stuff is starting to even affect our Muslim household. I'm hearing now girls don't want to get married no more. The boys don't want to get married. Nor do they even have the financial means to get married. And they saying, what's the point? I got to take on all these financial burdens and I'm not ready. I don't have it. So now I got to be a husband. I got to do all these affairs and handle all these responsibilities. I don't have the money. And we know financially, from the financial aspect of little boys at 16, 17, they don't. Financially, they're still developing. So in that instance, how are they going to what? Provide for a family. So that's the reason why a lot of the young youth are shying away from what? From marriage. I'm good. I don't want all that responsibility. And then some of us as the adults, set a bad example. Like, I don't want to be like my mom and dad. Look how they struggle. I'm good. I'm not doing all that. That's what I'm saying. It's scary now. How people, the things that people used to adore as taking honor and pride in, of having families and growing families and building family structures, they looking at it as a burden to the point they don't want to do it at all. I'm good. And now the kuffar wave and the effect, the impact they're having on the minds of the people, the Muslims are adopting it too. But now you find, I've heard, trust me, I'm hearing it left and right. Muslim girls don't want to get married. I don't want to get married. I'm not doing it. And you're hearing the boys say it. I'm good. I'm not getting married. I'm cool. I'm not doing that. For what? So I could be like you, mom, and I could be like you, dad, and see y'all miserable and hollering and screaming and acting like fools. I'm not doing that. It's scary. And like we said, these affairs can only be rectified until the Muslims start following Kitab and Sunnah, realize what these kuffar are pushing is not for us. It's not for us as the Muslims. We have the proper guidance. We don't need their affairs. We don't need to look to their matters at all, nor to anybody that's not Muslim, that's not following the Kitab and Sunnah. And you see their world is destroying society. You see it clearly. You see it. And they switched everything. Women now, like we said, women don't want to have children. They despise men. And men despise what? Women. And they just look at them as sex tools. That's it. You're a sex tool. I don't want the responsibility of spending money on you. For what? You have 30 sex partners. You're a whore. I don't have to respect you. Get out of here. So why should I spend my money on you? For what? You're a whore. You understand? Those type of things are affecting society. And these are the matters that, like we said, you have to be careful with not to adopt them. And all of them are playing the ultimate goal is reduction of what? Population. All of it. From the gun violence, from the drugs, from the destruction of the family structure within the homes, the fatherless homes, or the mothers that are not raising their children properly, the improper treatment of one another, the improper treatment of men with male and women to men and men to women, and not treating each other in a very decent way. It's making people not even want the headache of relationships no more. They don't want it. They don't want the stress. So that's the reason why, like I said, all these plays a part in what? In a role to what? Reduction of population. People are not going to see the results now, but they'll see it, and inshallah, may Allah protect us from it, but they'll see it 20 years from now. When there's a bunch of jobs or they're vacant jobs, so it's like there's no people around. There's no men around. And then the women really going to feel it because it's like, we didn't sign up for this. I just want to be a woman with my kids in my house. I didn't sign up to be a construction worker. I don't want to do none of that. I just want to look nice. I want to get my hair done and I want to be a woman. I want to be standing on some 1,000 feet platform looking like they're going to fall off doing some hard cement construction work. Because they knew that was for the who? That was for the men. They don't want to do that. I'm not doing that. Women that's upon pure Islam, they realize that Allah has honored them by excusing them from these matters. The kuffar are the one that, like you said, that follow that pathetic nonsense. They're starting to wake up and realize, like, whoa, these affairs is satanic. Yes, they are, of course. They're made to destroy society, all of it. Reduce the population control and destroy and bring down society. No more, no less. That's because that's the world we live in, and the ultimate goal is to set up for the release of the Dajjal. And that's where it's turning towards. Everything is being set up for the release of the Antichrist. It's being set up for him to be released. That's where you see where everything is going, due to the high magnitude of evil and corruption within society now. Because it's reached an all-time high. People are very evil out here. Extremely evil. In so many ways. And everybody has an agenda and ulterior motive for certain things. It's not sincerely for Allah anymore. But I'm going to get close to you because I want something from you. You understand? It's not because you're a good person, you're a wholesome person, nice person, I see you're God-fearing, and I just want to try to help you for Allah. That's real far and few now. People get close to one another for ulterior motives. And they move very strange. So anything else about the class? Anyone? طيب we'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.